The Media Center for Art Education and Technology, a service of the Monterey County Office of Education, along with the Herald Live, presents Prep Nation. Now to your hosts, Dave Kellogg and John Devine.
Welcome to Prep Nation. I'm Dave Kellogg alongside John Devine. We are in week 10 of high school football season, which means the shoe game, Pacific Grove against Carmel. And John, what I was going to ask you, both teams come in undefeated. Have you ever covered a shoe game with two undefeated teams?
No, in fact, in the 65 plus years of this shoe event, there's never been both teams have never been 9-0 at the same time.
Wow. So I know this is a game that the players look forward to all season long and probably all career long. Now both coming in at 9-0, does that put extra pressure on them?
I think it does, and actually I think it puts a little more pressure on Pacific Grove because I think for the first time in 5 years there's expectations there. I mean, on campus they believe Pacific Grove can win this game, and I talked to Zach Brown earlier today and he mentioned that, yeah, there's a little more pressure, but it's good pressure.
All right, let's hear more from Zach Brown.
All right, Zach, for all the offensive talk that we've heard all week, what about the defenses? I mean, yours is pretty good this year.
Yeah.
Up until last week, it had given up the least amount of points in the county.
Well, our defense has really stepped up a lot from last year. We've got our leading tackler in the MTALs, which is Matt Berry.
Right.
Our corners, everybody's doing their job. We have I personally think we do have the best defense in the entire Monterey County, and that's really going to help us, hopefully take home the win against Carmel.
Zach, what's different about this year's team versus last year, the last few years that you've been here?
Just this year, it's a large group of seniors. We're all really close friends. We all really connect well with each other. It's not just, we just play football and we're done. Like, we do other things outside of school with each other, which really helps us bond as a team. Okay.
Hey, and watching film of Carmel, which I'm sure you have, what do you have to do in terms of trying to stop this offense? Because it's not like you haven't seen this before.
Yeah. We just have to align and assign, make sure everybody's doing their job. Because if one person's not doing their job, and it really stops the rest of us from being able to, get our jobs done.
What's bigger, the shoe or the title? I know they go hand in hand this year, but
well, I'm definitely going to say the shoe because there's a lot of tradition at the school. I haven't been here my whole life, but just from hearing what everybody has to say about the shoe, I definitely have to say the shoe has a bigger impact on our school.
I want the title. I know they're going to be hand in hand this year, but I'm curious, is there more pressure this year on you guys, particularly on campus? Because I think for the first time maybe in 5 years, people believe Pacific Grove can win this game.
I do believe there's a little bit more pressure, but it's definitely going to help us. It's going to make us want to do better in this game, and it's the kind of pressure that we want to have on ourselves.
Sure.
The kind of pressure that a lot of people put on us is what we want, so that we will be able to have a good game on Friday.
Zach, is it a little surreal that you guys are 9-0? Because this hasn't happened at Pacific Grove in 8 years.
I've noticed the scores. We've been winning a lot, but I haven't really taken the time to sit down and think. We're 9-0. It's just the wins keep coming, which is really great for us, and we just keep rolling.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, before we get out of here, all right, tell me how defense is going to dictate this game. It's going to be a turnover. It's going to be a big stop at the end of the game. How is defense going to win this game on Friday?
Well, the way our defense works, we usually have a lot of big stops, third down stops, fourth down stops, which I really think is going to help us take a win on Friday.
So will Zach Brown make the big stop on Friday?
Hopefully.
All right, Zach Brown, thank you.
So, John, this year's shoe game is going to be at Pacific Grove. Is that going to make a difference at all, a Friday night as opposed to a Saturday afternoon in Carmel?
I don't think so, just for the fact that Carmel's played over the last 3 years. They've had playoff games at Pacific Grove. So,
they know the field well.
They know the field, and I think Friday night probably offers a better flavor. I mean, I've always looked at Friday night as high school football. I mean, this will likely be the largest crowd ever to watch a football game there at Pacific Grove since the stadium was renovated.
Yeah. Now, these are two teams that come in with similar numbers on offense, a lot of scoring, a lot of yardage. Are they seeing both teams? Do they look similar?
A little bit. I mean, they run similar offenses. Pacific Grove has kind of changed theirs a little bit this year. They've also changed their defensive schemes, and we've seen that. I mean, up until last week, they were the best defense in the county in terms of allowing the least amount of points. But going back to the offensive side, I don't think there are any secrets here. I mean, it's not like Carmel's offense has changed over the last 5 years. So these kids know what to expect from Pacific Grove and vice versa with Carmel.
Okay. Well, let's hear from Carmel coach Golden Anderson about this year's shoe game.
All right, Golden, you're averaging 48 points a game, and if you keep that pace, it'll be a county record. But Pacific Grove is averaging 46 points a game. Are we looking at a shootout on Friday?
I don't think either team wants that. I think the team that's going to play the best defense is going to win the game. I think that's usually good football games, and good football teams are going to play really good defense. And I think both teams have pretty good defenses, and I think the defense that's going to rise to the occasion and play really well is going to dictate the outcome.
You know, it's funny you mentioned defense because I went back and over the last 5 years, and Carmel's averaging 60.1 points a game over the last 5 meetings with Pacific Grove. However, up until last week, Pacific Grove had the best defense in the county in terms of giving up the least amount of points.
Yeah, they play really well on defense, and it's a whole new scheme for them. Some of the similar principles they used to have, but they got a lot of guys that believe on the defensive side of the ball, and they run to the ball like I've never seen them do before, and most great defenses do that, and it's no surprise that their defense has done what they've done this year.
Sure. Now, a win on Friday for Carmel would even this series. It's 32-32-2. Of course, it also means a league title, but is that home playoff game? Maybe is that more important?
I would say for them, only because they actually get to play at their field. If we have a home playoff game, it's a neutral site anyway, so there's no real advantage as a home. We don't even think about that. So if we were hosting the game here, maybe we'd think, hey, we really got to play at our home place and be in our own locker room and all that. But we don't really look at it that way. We're going to try to do whatever it takes to win the football game Friday night.
Speaking of, I'm sure you've seen Pacific Grove, if not in person, at least on film. What do they do well? Because they're 9-0 for a reason.
They play hard. They have a lot of effort and a lot of enthusiasm, which I really see from them. And they fly around the ball on defense. They're up-tempo on offense. And their guys look like they're really enjoying playing. And that's a mark of a good team. And the coaches and them, there's a lot of energy. And like I said earlier, it's no surprise to me that they're where they're at.
The one player that, to me, has stood out for them is Jake Speed. He's got 22 touchdowns this year, either as a receiver or running back. What's different about this kid other than he's healthy this year?
I think that you hit on it. I mean, I think you would have seen a lot of similar things last year. He played. He was a dynamic player as a 10th grader. And we played him over there, scored against us right there in the first quarter and took the lead. And I think, if anything, I think he maybe appreciates more the time that he has on the field as a senior who's been hurt. And I think a lot of athletes have been in that position, and he's making the most of it. And he's really impressive to watch.
Yeah. We've talked about this in the past. People just assume that you're a pass-happy offense because you put up points at an alarming rate and often quickly. But the running game has been vital, particularly over the last 3 years with Holden Smith, who's on his way to a third straight 1,000-yard season.
Yeah, I mean, our offensive line has done a great job the last couple of years with Holden. It's been a different group of guys every year, but we are trying to take what the defense gives us. We don't go into the game saying we're going to throw it 50 times or run it 50 times. We just, as the game goes, we go, and we're not afraid to throw it on any down, including fourth down, and we're not afraid to run it on any down. So I think that kind of contributes to maybe the belief that we're a passing team.
Yeah. Now, a win on Friday would make you 10-0 for the third time in 5 years. I know you don't get into numbers and stuff, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and that says a lot about our kids. And we talked to our kids the other night. I mean, we congratulated them on being the 9 wins, and we talked a lot about the history of this program and where it's been before, and it's not a foregone conclusion that you're going to get 8, 9, 10 wins in a season, and to cherish it and enjoy it. And they're the reasons why we're here.
You mentioned the 9 wins. That's 9 wins 5 straight years. Has that ever happened before in this almost 50 years in this program?
I don't know. I don't know. When we originally started playing in the early 40s, 50s, and 60s, I don't even believe there was 10-game schedule. So we had a lot of championship teams back in the 60s, and I don't know.
Never happened in your era as a quarterback, though, did it?
Not when I was playing here, that's for sure.
Hey, before we get out of the shoe, is it still a big deal? Because to me, I mean, you're playing for a title this week as well as a home field game.
Yeah, the shoe's important because this one game actually dictates the shoe. A championship's dictated by all the league games, and our kids, we know that for a fact. If we don't win last week, we're really not playing for a championship. So really those all have those implications. But the shoe is a lot older than us, and it's going to continue on after we're all gone.
Sure.
And it's very important to us, as it is to them in both communities. It's the one time that both communities seem like they really care about a high school event around these parts, and it's a neat thing to be part of.
Yeah. Hey, Golden, this is really maybe the last time we're going to be out here because this field's going to go through a whole complete renovation at the end of the year. On synthetic surface, brand new track, et cetera, et cetera. You have a memory at all in your time here as a coach and a player?
Really the memories I have are thinking back to all the old teams that played here for the last 70 years and the guys that weren't in the position that we're in right now that went through it all with 20-man roster, an 18-man roster, and barely able to field a varsity and stuck with it, and all those players that came through here and did that and didn't have the chance maybe to what we're going to get the opportunity to do on Friday night and play for a championship. So those are the kinds of things that we think about.
Great. All right, Golden, thanks.
Thank you.
So Pacific Grove has improved every year under Chris Morgan. What is this, his 4th season there?
Yeah.
And now he's in the best position he's been in since he's been there. Do you think he's a little bit nervous going into this game?
He seemed excited. I mean, and talking to him on Tuesday, he just was kind of laid back, comfortable. I mean, I think he's been waiting for 4 years for this moment. I mean, this is an explosive offense that Pacific Grove has. They're averaging 46 points a game, only second only to Carmel's 48 points a game. I mean, remember, these two teams last year combined for 93 points. They're on pace, both of them to shatter their county records.
Well, let's hear more from Coach Morgan.
All right, Chris, any chance we could see a defensive battle this week? I know everybody's talking about the offenses, but up until last week, you had the best defense in the county in terms of least amount of points allowed.
I think there's a good possibility of a big defensive battle. I mean, you've had two great defensive teams playing all year. They've got a solid defense. They are used to going against an offense similar to ours every day in practice. And the same with our defense. They see those kinds of spread offensive looks, and a lot of teams are doing it within the league. So I think there's a real possibility both defenses could really buckle down, and it could be one of those, 21-20 games, 28-21 kind of games, not the high-flying circus that everybody expects.
Not the 93 points we saw last year. There was. This has been a gradual process for you. You're in your fourth year now, but in each of your 4 years, you've gotten better in the win column. But did you see 9-0?
We didn't see 9-0, and not to say you don't set goals for your team and try and look down the road and see the possibility of that. But really, it's we knew we should have success this year. We knew we had some guys coming back and some great athletes. But we didn't want to say, well, we should be 9-0 by the time we get to the shoe game. I always say, we take it 1 week at a time, and as the momentum kept building, we were still like, well, let's not look that far ahead. I mean, we could have got caught last week, and obviously, the week before that, we could have had a big letdown. So it's a week-by-week thing, but we knew we could be pretty good.
Speaking of last week, you survived a nail-biter last week against King City, literally needing a one-handed catch from Big Steve to keep that winning drive alive. And I'm curious, does that provide maybe a little more confidence for this program, because now they know they can come from behind if they have to in the fourth quarter?
Well, I think it speaks to the character of the boys we have on this team. I mean, they work hard, they do a great job, and that game just kind of exemplified their character to come back from being down like that. So is it a confidence builder? Well, sure. They know that, look, anytime we need to get a score, our offense is capable of doing great things, but we also needed big stops on defense, and overall just the team aspect. Great confidence builder.
Sure.
We were very happy with the outcome, obviously.
For those that don't know, 42-41.
Yeah.
King
And there's always that teams that go through seasons like this, there always seems to be some moment where you either get lucky somewhere, a lucky bounce on the field, or you have to come back to win a game like that. So the big thing is it just speaks to the character of our kids.
And Chris, obviously this game is called the Shoe for a reason. I mean, it's 65th meeting, I believe, 66th meeting, I believe. It's always nice, I think, when both teams are playing well, but to both be 9-0, I mean, I don't think it's happened before.
I haven't heard of it. I've asked people around, is it the first time really both teams are 9-0? I mean, what an exciting game, what an exciting environment for this game, no doubt.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you've watched film, or at least seen film, or seen Carmel in person, I should say. How do you stop this juggernaut of an offense?
It's tough. I mean, who do you take away? I mean, if you try and take Holden away, then obviously Connor's capable of beating you with his arm and his legs. I mean, he's running the ball a lot more this year and doing great things back there as a quarterback. So really the thing is maybe you try and slow the pace of the game down. I think that's what a lot of teams have said about us, and probably Carmel too, is try and shorten the game, limit their touches on offense, and that's about the best you can do.
Yeah. Now, obviously we've talked about this is for the Shoe, but it's not just for the Shoe. It's also for an MTL title and for a home playoff game. And that might be the bigger of the three.
Probably hosting a playoff game. Well, depending on who you talk to. I mean, I think probably more than anything, it's the Shoe.
Right.
I mean, those other things aside, I'm sure you look on their board and our board, it's the first goal would probably be the Shoe game before the championship.
Hey, before we get out of here, practice has been a little different this week, a little more up-tempo, upbeat, campus buzzing.
There is a lot of buzz around the community and on campus, and practice. We're the let's keep the normal thing we've been doing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
We're going to go through this week just like we do any other week. It seems to be working for us. Don't want to change anything or add any.
I know.
Yeah. So we're gonna go through practice just like we would. You know, we pride ourselves in consistency and continuity, and the routine we have in place about going through the opponent and all that. You know, we're not going to change that.
Great. All right, Chris, thanks. Good luck.
Thank
on Friday.
you.
So playoff-wise now, what's at stake in this game?
Well, see, to me, that's the bigger thing that we're not talking about here. I mean, everybody's talking about the shoe, and I understand it's a big deal for both communities and the schools involved, and there's also a league title at stake, which is the first time that's happened in 8 years. But there's a home game at stake here. The winner of this game is going to host a playoff game.
Okay.
Now, when talking to Coach Anderson, he said, you know, that's not as big of a deal for us because we can't host a game at Carmel, so we'd likely have to host it at Pacific Grove anyway.
Oh, okay.
But for Coach Morgan, they would host a game on that SID. So I think there's a lot of incentive there. And even for Carmel, I mean, you don't want to go on the road, you know, particularly if you can host a first-round game, because we're looking at Carmel or Pacific Grove, the winner of this game, probably being a number 3 seed in Division 4 behind Sacred Heart, Prep, and Live Oak.
So if they, if the loser has to go on the road, how long would their road trip be? We know Sacred Heart Prep's about 2 hours away. Live Oak's about a little over an hour away, I guess.
Well, if you believe the way the points are coming out as of today, the loser of this game will be the number 7 seed and have to go play Live Oak and Morgan Hill, and that's probably a good draw. I mean, if I'm Pacific over Carmel, I'm going to be happy with that spot. And ironically, these two teams can meet again in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. In the semis?
Yes, and I think it'll happen, actually.
Oh, okay. I wanted to mention one other MTAL game going on this weekend, and that's Marina against Stevenson. Marina wins, they have a 500 record for the first time ever.
Ever. Ever.
How big is this game for them?
You know, I think getting that first win was probably going to be the highlight of their season. I mean, because remember, this is a team that had dropped 27 straight games since going to 11-man football. I mean, that got the monkey off their shoulders, sort of the piano off their back, so to say. And I think everything else has been just a little more progression of their program. I mean, but sure, 5-5 after being winless for 3 years. I mean, who wouldn't take that? I mean, they took one win. I mean, and they've played well in spurts this year. I mean, they went through a little bit of a drought when they dropped 3 straight games. Didn't play very well defensively, but that was Soledad, Pacific Grove, and King City. I mean, that's a tough group of teams to play right now. They are back to where they were. Impressive win over Greenfield, in which you know, was a come-from-behind win. But Stevenson's good too.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got Drew Miller back. He's over 1,000 yards rushing, and they missed him when when they lost. They were in that 3-game losing streak. He was only there for 2 of those games in terms of health-wise, and you know, he's a big player too for Stevenson.
Let's look now at what happened last week, and you were at the Monterey Seaside game. Monterey with the victory there, they clinched at least a second-place finish in the Gablin division. But also there was a big injury that people are asking about, and that was Seaside's Ronnie Turner with a concussion. How is he doing?
Well, I spoke with his brother and mom via text, because that's what everybody does these days. And both said he was fine. He's home. He's probably out for the next 2 weeks. I mean, he was knocked unconscious on that play, and it was a scary moment. If you saw the eyes of the Monterey High coaches, I mean, they were frantically calling for their doctors to get out there and overlook him. He got up a couple of times. He was really woozy, so they took him in the ambulance more for precautionary. He had a headache the next day, but for the most part, Ronnie's fine. I don't know if he'll be back this year, though.
Okay. Now, Seaside faces a key game, their regular season ender against Monte Vista Christian. They need a victory there to get into the playoffs?
I think so. I think 4 and 6 will not get them in, and they're reeling a little bit right now. Remember, they lost a heartbreaker 2 weeks ago in the last play of the game to San Benito, and then, of course, losing Ronnie, and then coming back and losing that game 19-7. This team was really 2 plays away maybe from beating Monterey last week. I mean, there were 2 interceptions inside the 5-yard line, and give credit to Monterey for their defense. You know, being in the right place at the right time, so to say. But, you know, you take those 2 interceptions away or their completed passes, who knows, maybe Seaside scores and it's a different outcome.
Now, they win. They get that playoff spot. Where do you think they wind up in the field?
They'll likely be the number 8 seed and they'll go up to Sacred Heart Prep. They're in Atherton, who'll be the top seed.
All right, so they'll make that 2-hour trip to...
They will, but you know what's funny about Seaside? They would probably be the scariest number 8 seed team you'd want to face. You know, when they're running on all cylinders, like they were a month ago against Salinas, like they were in the second half against San Benito 2 weeks ago, they're the best team in the county. The trouble is they haven't played like that. They haven't been consistent. And you talk to head coach Alvin, he consistently says, I don't know which team is going to show up. And we saw that last week.
We'll see what happens. We also have Palma against Hollister, San Benito.
Baylor's.
Traditionally a very physical game. And you've said time and again how San Benito does not fear Palma.
No, they don't. And You know, you look at San Benito over the last 2 years. Remember, they're the defending CCS Division I champions.
Right.
They seem to just turn it up a gear in November. Dating back to last year when November was around, they're 6-1. However, that one loss was to Palma last year in Hollister. Palma, you know, a lot of people gave up on them when they were 0-3, and now here they are 6 straight wins later, the Gavilan Division champions. They're headed to the Open Division, I think, regardless of this outcome.
Right.
However, if they were to lose this game, Monterey could get a share of that title.
And then because of head-to-head, Palma would get the Open.
I would think so, and I think they have more points too. I mean, they played
right.
a brutal non-league schedule when you look at Palo Alto, St. Joseph, and St. Francis, and Carmel.
Now, do you think they're prepared to go into the Open Division and face the West Catholic League winner? And after that, I mean, they played such a tough non-league schedule. They've faced these type of teams
That's
before.
true. I just don't know if anybody's prepared to face some of those West Catholic athletic teams. This is a transition year for Palma, which makes what they've done this year even more impressive. I mean, they're loaded down at the junior varsity level. This program will be back next year. And I think, you know, if you talk to head coach Jeff Carnazzo, he said, we're fine with going in there. You know, we're going to get some experience out of this. But he wanted this in the preseason. He wanted the Palo Altos and the St. Francis. He wanted to gauge his program, and now he knows where he stacks up going into the playoffs.
Now, Salinas is another team playing for its playoff life, so to speak. And they close out the season against Alisal. They need a win, and then they will advance to the Division I playoffs?
You know, it's funny, if they win, they'll not only advance, but they'll probably get a home game.
Wow.
And, you know, for the last 5 years, Salinas has made the CCS Division I semifinals. A home game in the first round, I see them going back to the semifinals for a 6th straight year. But they do got to get past Alisal, and Alisal has struggled this year. I've said this before, I don't think this program belongs in the Gavilan Division. They'll be back in the Pacific next year. But they've played tough. They've held the lead at half in 4 of their 9 games this year. They just haven't been able to finish in a couple of them. They're thin in numbers right now too.
Well, say Salinas wins, who do you think they'll get in the first round?
I have no idea. I will say this, though, Alvarez will likely be in the Division I playoffs too, regardless of their outcome at Monterey.
Monterey. Could they Salinas wind up with a rematch with Hollister again, like they did last season?
They could. I mean, again, it'll all determine on the brackets who's 1 and who's 8, because it goes 1-8, 2-7, et cetera, like that.
Okay. John, you mentioned Alvarez. They're going for an undefeated season, their first ever, against Monterey this week.
Yes, it's been a magical season for the Eagles. You know, I think we've talked about this before, but there's only been one other program that's gone from 0-10 to 10-0, and that was North County back in 1979, which goes way back to our era.
Yeah, that's right.
It's just been, the thing that impresses me about Alvarez is how they've won games this year. I mean, they've come from behind, they've rallied, they've stopped the team on a 2-point conversion to win a game, and they've won big. They've produced 64 points in one game, and they've held the team to 17 points. So they've found all kinds of ways to win games this year. But Monterey will clearly be the best team they've faced this season.
Okay. Jumping now to cross country on Saturday, it's the CCS Championships up in Belmont at Crystal Springs. How are our teams looking for that?
Well, we've got a couple teams I think have a shot at going to state, one being Seaside. They go back to Division IV right now. They're defending CCS Division IV champions. I think they were 9th in the state last year. 5 of those 7 kids are back. Now, granted, they lost their 2 distance aces, but they've got 5 of them back. They performed well at the Gavilan Division Finals, finishing second to San Benito. I think they've got a real good shot, if not defending their title, then at least getting back to the state meet.
Okay. What about girls?
You got to take a look at the Pacific World Girls team.
Okay.
I know Michelle Watkins didn't run well last week, but they still won the title. She was unbeaten in dual meet competition. The thing with Division IV in girls is San Lorenzo Valley's in that division, and they're one of the state's best teams. So that's a lock there. They're fighting for a second or third spot. There are individuals, though, that I think you got to take a look at. One being Lizzie Tardu of Santa Catalina, Maddie McKenzie of Carmel, who won the MTL title, and Alex Lathos of Notre Dame, who won the Pacific Division title in the Monterey Bay League. Santa Catalina, might say, too, who won the Division V title last year, can't do it this year because they're in Division IV.
Oh, they got pushed up. Okay. Also going on right now is the volleyball playoffs, and on Thursday,
I'm sorry.
Thursday, Saturday.
Today.
Yeah, today. Salinas is taking on Carlmont of Belmont in a first-round game in Division I. How does Salinas look? Is the chemistry coming together for them now?
It's funny. Salinas I think it is, but they've dealt with a lot of different issues this year. Obviously, Maddie Mandan, came back from that knee surgery. I think she's just now getting herself into playing shape. And Raleigh McKinley, who was a transfer from Anzar, had over 400 kills last year. I think she's finally learning the system at Salinas High. Alex Frostad had played so well, but she got hurt. And she missed some time. So it's a question of who's going to be there on the floor. Erin Rinkin, the setter, is in a marvelous job in terms of just keeping the balance. Emily Cook's had a nice season on the outside. I mean, Salinas has a lot of depth They're the number 3 seed for a reason. Remember, this is a program that's won 3 straight Gatlin Division titles.
Right, okay. Notre Dame has the first round off, and they host a game, the second round game on Saturday.
And I think normally some coaches don't want to buy, particularly if you're playing well. But I think in Notre Dame's case, they needed to buy. I mean, they didn't play well against Salinas and San Benito in their last 2 matches. This is an opportunity for them to regroup. They're back in Division 4. They were in Division 5 last year. I think this is the right division they belong in. This is a talented team that if it gets on a roll, I mean, we could see them not only in the CCS finals, but perhaps in the NorCal playoffs.
Oh, wow. Okay.
The Monterey County Herald, news at your fingertips 24/7. With the Herald newspaper, website, and mobile apps, you get local, national, and international news, photos, and video. Local news written by local journalists from the largest news outlet in Monterey County. Breaking news online or directly on your mobile device, including up-to-the-minute weather. The Monterey County Herald is more than talking heads and sound bites. It's award-winning journalism at your fingertips 24/7.
Okay, we're back with Tommy Wright, who covers CSUMB and the JC Sports Force. CSUMB women's basketball, the Kerry Nakamoto era, as they call it, that debuted, and boy, what a debut for her.
Yeah, it's like night and day compared to Renee Jimenez. Jimenez was a defense-first coach, and it really showed both in the play and in the scores, whereas it's totally different under Nakamoto. 98-70 win over Dixie State. That's the most this team's ever scored since they joined the NCAA. So
what a way to start, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah. Put her stamp on the program right away.
Yeah.
Who were some of the stars for CSUMB in the win?
Yeah, it was 3 of the returning players had big games. Guard Nikki Beckman led the team with 18 points and 6 assists. Holly Holcomb had another big game. She had 14 points, 8 assists, and 4 steals. And then Ashley Morgan also added 14 points. But another name for some of the people here locally is Seaside High alumna Victoria Dorn.
Right.
She scored 13 points in her return. She missed last season. She redshirted after having knee surgery.
Right.
So it's a great sign for this team. And overall, I think this is really good. They had 7 different players reach double digits in scoring. And that's something that's going to be key if they want to keep up this pace. Yeah. You can't have just a couple people. They're going to wear down pretty quickly if you're trying to score 90 points a game.
So what's next for the Otters?
So next up for them, they're heading north. They have the Lady Argo Classic up in Belmont. So they'll have a couple games there this coming weekend, and then right after that, they'll have a Thanksgiving break, and then they'll jump right into CCAA play. So
okay, great. Hey, let's move ahead now to JC football and Hartnell and MPC on the collision course.
Yeah.
Much like last year, Hartnell's the favorite in this ball game with a bowl bid on the line.
Yeah, Hartnell hasn't lost yet in Coast Conference play, and they posted 70 points over the weekend. So they're rolling right now. That team showed that they can do it on both sides of the ball. They can play a defensive game. They can play an offensive game. So, obviously it always starts with DeAndre Mann there, and he had 170 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns. But Kurt Ciraldi also had a big game. He threw for 286 yards and 3 scores.
Okay.
So, but then also the defense definitely did have some big plays there. They forced 5 fumbles, recorded 6 sacks. Capil Fletcher had a big part of that. He had 2 sacks and a fumble recovery. So Hartnell's really rolling, whereas things are kind of the other way for MPC.
But they had a big victory. It was a must-win game against San Jose City, and they were without their starting quarterback.
Oh, yeah, definitely. They lost Andrew Ludenbach 2 weeks ago he got hurt in the Cabrillo game. He injured his ankle, and at this point, they're still unsure who's going to start against Hartnell. But, yeah, it was definitely key for them to win that game against San Jose City. That keeps their Coast Conference title hopes alive. And they scored 52 points, which was the high for them all season. The key to that was turnovers. They took advantage of some turnovers and translated those into points, but it's going to be a big question mark for them heading into this game at quarterback.
So say Hartnell wins on Saturday, then what's next for them?
So if Hartnell wins, they'll win the Coast Conference title outright, and that'll earn them a bowl bid. They should be heading back to the Living Breath Bowl, which MPC actually went into last year and fell short against Contra Costa. And that game's most likely going to be up at Cabrillo.
Okay, up in Aptos.
Yeah.
And that's it for Prep Nation this week. Make sure and join us again next week. Thanks.